All right, gentlemen, fall camp. Let's talk defense real quick. Storylines, things you've observed throughout spring camp. What are some of the biggest questions that you have going into fall camp into the 2024 season? I will go first. Get your guys' thoughts about it. What is that pass rush going to look like in fall camp? Is Peyton Thorne going to be running for his life? What's the deal with the pressure? We know what DJ Durkin likes to do, but can
Mm.
Auburn organically generate pressure, or is he going to have to get real creative with some of his blitz packages in the fall? Thoughts on that, guys?
I think it's tough when you're talking about defense, right? And every coach talks about this aspect of it. Um, you never really know when one side dominates. You're not left with a good feeling one way or the other, right? So if your defense is dominating, it's like, well, do we suck at blocking, or is our defense just that good? So, it's going
Right.
to be. I think it's tough when you're talking about the defensive side of the ball because you just don't know what it is. The quarterback can't really be hit. The guys know that. um,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's tough on defense when you're talking about pass rush, right? But on offense, you're just looking for execution. Remember our friend over at ESPN, Heather Dinich, said, "I think you guys are going to need some patience with your wide receivers," and everybody jumped down her throat from what she saw at spring practice. On offense, it's a little easier. You can tell a little bit more about whether they're kind of executing, if the routes look crisp, are they winning? Because they can play a little bit closer to full speed against who they're going up against when we're talking about, the pass game. So it will be interesting, I think, to watch what narratives come out because last year, remember, it wasn't Peyton Thorne is killing it at camp. It's not what we heard coming out of camp last year. It was, I think he's pressing.
Right.
So, do we hear those same narratives coming out of camp this year, or is it Peyton looks sharp, he looks solid, he looks like he's got command of the offense, and we're going to put the ball in his hand this year and ask him to take us to the promised land? What are they
We'll talk.
projecting there?
We'll talk about the offense for sure on that because that's definitely a question that I want to expound upon when we get there. Uh, Defensively, is there anything that you are looking forward to seeing, Mike?
Yeah, like I said, it's difficult for me on defense.
Okay.
You want to get through camp healthy, obviously. You don't want to see guys get injured
Sure.
out there, but it's defense is always like kind of like a wait till the season and see kind of thing for me. I don't know what you really get out of fall camp because they're the side of the ball that has to kind of hold up a little bit to some extent. You can't go after the quarterback like they're not wanting guys to get hurt. And if they're getting burned, then it's you just again, what do you take from that? We heard some questions last year about defense, and they had a really good year last year. I thought, all things considered, defensively with how Auburn did offensively, I thought the defense played admirably, but I did not come out of the fall camp thinking this defense is going to be awesome. I think it was a surprise to everybody how they played personally. So, yeah, I mean, I know that sounds like a non-answer, but defensively, I just don't know that I'm getting too excited or too down about what I hear coming out of fall
Sure.
camp.
Well, I guess what I would say in response to that, before I ask you your thoughts, Ike, is what you don't want to hear coming out of fall camp or after the first scrimmage is that the offense just lit up the defense, right? You typically what you tend to hear first scrimmage is the defense pretty much won the scrimmage. The offense usually begins to kind of find its footing in subsequent scrimmages and practices because obviously the defense kind of knows what's coming. So the expectation is that they should win that scrimmage for the most part. I think it'll be concerning if Peyton Thorne and the offense just goes off unless Hugh Freezes really knows something that we don't know about this offense going into the fall season. So I would say that, Mike, if we're hearing that the
Yeah, that's
offense
fair.
is if it's lopsided, that will be a concern.
Yeah, it's tough. I don't maybe in the context of this offense, if this offense is lighting you up, you're left with two questions. Are they just that much better, or do you know what I mean?
Right.
Is that something we should expect out of this offense, or if are you looking at the talent and say there's no way this offense should be lighting up this defense? So if they're lighting it up, it's because our defense sucks.
Mm,
Don't don't I answer that in fall camp? I honestly don't. So yeah, we'll see. Fall camp isn't what it used to be back in the day, man. It was a lot tougher back in the day. They put the kids through a lot more. Now, they've got restrictions. We had some unfortunate incidents, I think, on the field with players getting pushed too hard. So, and I think that matters a lot on defense when you're talking about seeing if those guys are physically tough. Coaches have a hard time trying to gauge that in fall camp, and for fans and media alike, I think it's even harder. So, yeah, I don't know. It would definitely not be a good thing, to your point, to hear that they're getting lit up, like
right.
busted coverages. I guess maybe
Right.
you would fall into that
Right.
category, like guys are out of place. You know,
Like Jac Jaquez, I mean, all three running backs broke off 70-yard runs, right?
yeah, yeah,
in,
yeah,
in,
right,
in the
yeah.
scrimmage. It's just like, whoa, like
Yeah, but
what's
it's
going
like,
on
are
here?
they amazing? Right? Well, I don't know. Right? I think
Yeah,
it should be a
kind
good
of, but
good mix of both. Right? Yeah, we
yeah,
made some plays. We have some things we got to clean up, but overall, I was happy with how they played. That's
yeah,
defense. That's defense for me.
right, right. Anything that you're paying close attention to in fall camp, something that you're going to be seeing actually develops as we go through fall camp defensively.
I mean, I think the biggest thing for me defensively, which has been the question that I've had, is the safety position. Who are going to be the guys that are going to step
Mm,
up? Coach Freeze has been clear that Jaron Thompson has been a vocal leader back there in the safety position, but who's going to be the other guy that's right alongside him? Is it going to be Caleb Wooden? Is it going to be um,
Aaron
uh,
Thompson.
you know Jaron? Well, I think Jaron Thompson is kind of penciled in as the guy, just from hearing Freeze talk about it.
Mm,
But like who
gotcha.
alongside him is going to be the other guy. And I think, Laquan Robinson's got an opportunity to step up in there alongside him. But like who's going to develop to be the other safety in that room with him, and what that rotation may potentially look like. And then I think the other thing is going to be, we talked about the depth at the cornerback position. Like, what does it look like behind Keontae Scott and Kay and Lee, in case they need to get called on the outside corner position? Because we'll start hearing what the two deep, because Coach Hugh Freeze really hates depth charts, but we'll start hearing what the two deep looks like. What does that two deep look like at those outside corner positions? I think it's going to be interesting to me. And then the last thing is really like, who of these freshmen that have been getting a lot of conversation, specifically the linebackers coming into the season, how much are they factoring into this entire process? Because that's going to be interesting to see during the season how many snaps you get from a Demarcus Riddick and et cetera. So just all of this highly touted freshman class. We'll talk about the offensive side, but of the defensive guys, how much are they going to be called upon to actually go and make plays on Saturdays during the season? I think that starts at fall camp with seeing kind of what their rotation looks like in the depth.
Okay. Well, listen, let's pivot and talk offense. Obviously, Mike has kind of already talked about it. QB. Hugh Freeze has really given a lot of praise to Peyton Thorne in the offseason for his leadership. And Mike alluded to the fact is, are we going to hear any more talks of pressing? Or is Peyton Thorne going to be loose and he's going to continue his praise, but this time based on Peyton Thorne's play? I think
I don't think we need to hear any of that
Yeah,
this year, man. I'm sorry. Like there is no who might be the starter. He's coming in already the presumptive starter. What like the reason why he went ahead and made the decision to announce Peyton Thorne as the starter
mhm,
last year was to alleviate the pressing thing. You already know he's the starter going into fall camp this year. So what is there to press about?
right,
Just go out there and play
right,
ball. I don't want to hear no pressing stuff this
right.
year. I'm sorry. Like if he's struggling in
yeah,
fall camp
yeah.
this
Don't tell
year,
me. Keep it to yourself. Right? Ignorance is bliss. I do not. Yeah,
I
don't.
can't
Yeah,
I don't know if I can deal with Peyton Thorne struggling in
yeah,
fall camp this year. He had the entire spring, which is that's a big reason why people said, listen, he didn't even have a spring. He was just getting in there during he had the entire spring. There is no quarterback controversy about who's going to be the
yeah.
guy. You've got all the pass catching targets in the world out there to be able to
Lie to
facilitate.
me.
You're wearing a non-contact jersey, so you're not going to get hit. there's no reason he should be pressing during fall camp. It
Yeah,
shouldn't be a thing.
I agree with Ike.
Shouldn't.
The truth will not set you free here. It will absolutely destroy you. I don't. If that is the truth, I don't want to hear it. You put your weight behind this guy, and let him show whatever it is on the field. But in no way do I think it helps Peyton Thorne or the team or you to come out and say if he's not playing well. Now we know every camp reports will come out of camp about how the scrimmages go, certainly. But Hugh Freeze, I don't think he's obligated to answer questions about closed practices.
Mm.
That's why they're closed. So, I hope that he manages that way this year. Obviously, everybody wants to know what's going on, but I think it would be to the detriment of the team uh, to put anything out that says that Peyton Thorne is anything but doing great. If he's doing great, tell us. If he's not, just be like, look, we went with him for a reason. Yeah, he's showing that in practice, and we expect that to translate on the field. You guys got 3 years, 4 years worth of tape to know what Peyton Thorne can do. That's what we expect on Saturdays. We expect that Peyton Thorne, and that's it. I don't want to hear the rest of it. Keep it to yourself. Like, I don't want to hear. Sometimes I'm too honest. No, just full stop. I have to. I'm going to lose my mind if we're talking about him pressing again for a second year straight. Because a lot of people felt like Caesar coming in after summer and not having a spring with Auburn. It was catching up. Okay,
Mm.
I'll accept that, right? But I would almost say that if Thorne is still pressing, I'm likely if he's not come along, I'm likely in the camp that it's a coaching issue and not a player issue. Uh, I just don't. I don't think he's as bad as he played at times last year. I don't. I'm not there, and I know people. A lot of people were very, very anti Peyton Thorne the last like couple months, guys. It felt like everyone in our comment section says, "There's no way Thorne is not the guy." Blah blah blah. Remember Ike in the offseason, we were like, they're not going to get a portal QB, and there's no way after that they can go into the spring without picking up a QB. You absolutely have to do it. We're like, no, not the way this coach sees 2024 as a bridge year to the year that where he's going to have all the talent that he needs. No, you don't have to go out and get a QB. You just have to get through 2024 the best you can, and you think Peyton Thorne is good enough if you upgrade pieces around him to get you there. So he's gonna. I mean, at worst, he should just be the same guy he's always been. Low 60% passing. Give him his volume back so that he can make more plays in volume, and that's it. And you take the good with the bad with him because that's what he was at Michigan State. Great plays, frustrating plays at times. I assume that he's doing that in practice as well too. But you know
Right.
what you're getting when you put him out there. That's the guy you chose. So you just hope he can make more plays than mistakes. Then that's it.
But that's an interesting thought, though, right? Like, was the perception of Peyton Thorne as pressing a um an expectation thing of like, well, we expected him to do better than what he was doing, or now do you go on with a realization of like kind of who he is? So what you see as ups and downs is more like, oh, that's Peyton Thorne, right? So I don't expect anything other than he's going to be great sometimes, and sometimes it's not going to look so great. Which is why you put all of this focus on upgrade everything around him because you know what you have in Peyton Thorne. So I got it. If my offense is going to improve, the upgrades need to
Yeah,
come other
yeah, sure.
places.
It's. I just in no
Well,
way does it
yeah.
benefit you to come out and tell everybody that he's struggling in any way. I just
Well,
don't
the
do
the
that.
Yeah.
the the hope is that also too, there's been a large emphasis placed on uh, the chemistry with staff and how that is bled into the offensive
Hmm.
players. So you would hope that there's an understanding of what the coaching staff is doing, what Auburn is doing as an offense, to where there's no need to do any of that pressing, right? You going out there and just executing what you've been executing and you understand full well what's expected of you, as opposed to last year when it may have been a little bit fuzzy because let them tell it, things were not coaches were not on the same page, right? So the hope is that going into the fall is that none of that, there shouldn't be any pressing because a lot of the things that were environmental with this offense not being successful has been addressed.
Right.
I do wonder what the response to, because as you said earlier, Mike, the reports aren't just going to come from Hugh Freeze. Other people
Sure.
are going to be
Yes.
talking to people, and they're going to be hearing stuff. And you go into a press conference, and like, we're hearing X, Y. Like, if there's a direct question
Yeah.
about
How does he
Peyton
handle
Thorne, like
that?
how generic will the questions be about Peyton Thorne, or will there be some very pointed questions about, we've been hearing reports
Like,
of blah
yeah,
blah blah? Like, how does
we
he
heard
respond
we
to those
heard Payne
things?
Thorne threw 3 picks in practice. Like, can you?
Right.
Yeah, and those questions are going to come because they came last year. How does he
Right.
answer
Yeah.
that? Of course, that's tough, right? Do you be honest, or
Yeah.
do you just say, "Look, guys, I'm not going to." I think it's okay to just say you can't talk about. You have to. You can't get too high or too low. So the way to handle it is don't talk about the good or the bad.
Right.
Right. Just
Yeah.
say, look, I'm not going to get into specific numbers or players or whatever. Right. But we feel like the team's coming along really well, and that includes Peyton, and leave it at that. But yeah, I think where you get in trouble, Ike, is when you say Jarquez is doing really good. He's a standout, and then you ask him about Peyton Thorne, and then you go all political. That's an answer.
Right.
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 So just don't get too high or too low on any of it. I know that's going to be boring for us as fans or media, but if you're asking me how I think he should handle it,
I
I
think
don't.
he's gonna
Yeah,
struggle to do it
yeah.
though, because he has this tendency, as he says, to be too honest, right? And if he stops with the honesty when it comes to the quarterback question, like, how is that going to be
Right.
perceived? I think people are very, if you are not a fan of Peyton Thorne, you're going to run with that.
Sure.
You're going to run
Sure.
with, did you hear how he answered that question? That means blah, blah, blah. And I heard, and somebody told me, who was a janitor, who comes up, man, he was picking up a cup. At the same time, Peyton Thorne threw a pick, and he came and told me that he's like, it's going
But
to
Yeah.
happen.
even if you're off the Peyton Thorne train, you still may interpret those answers like that, Ike. Like things
Yeah.
aren't thing that does not look to Mike's point. To Mike's point, he can't get too high or too low because like that is an
It's
answer.
an answer. Yeah. So you just
Yeah.
keep it even. It's not what people are going to want to hear, but it's not going to stop the reports from coming out about what's happening. Or
Yeah.
so we
Right.
can talk about that.
But
It's fine. Yeah, I'm fine talking about
it's
that. I want
one
to hear from
thing
the
for the
coach.
message to come from other people. It's another thing when it comes from
Well, the
Hugh,
coach,
either
yeah.
directly or indirectly.
Yeah, if you want to keep the pressure off of Peyton, and you want to take that pressure for Peyton
Yeah.
this year, you want him to just play free. You want to be the barrier, the shield between him and all the fan criticism. At least initially to start the season. Now, if they're going to accomplish anything, he's going to have to take some of it. But ultimately, I do feel like they had more of a coaching issue last year than they had a player personnel issue. And Peyton Thorne is not as bad as the numbers suggested. I don't think he's bad at all. Let me not say that as bad, because it sounds like I think he's bad. I think that he can be a good quarterback, and that we didn't see that last year because of a lot of things not related to Peyton Thorne. So you put
Yeah. I just don't want to hear it's everybody
fault. Yeah.
else's fault
Yeah. I
this
mean, you
year.
blame
Yeah,
the receivers, right? There were
you
some
can't say
excuses
that for
given about
sure.
game planning. So you had a whole year to work that out in the summer and the spring, you know what I mean? Now fall. So now that you've got to own it. If it doesn't go right, I just don't think that the regression that we saw last year was about him just forgetting how to play football. The percentages held true. It's not like his completion percentage fell off by 10%. Didn't fall off at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The only
Yeah, his touchdown to interception ratio was about what
yeah,
you expect it to
you just
be, right?
took
Like all of that stuff.
150 pass attempts away from him. That's it, because you claimed that you didn't have faith in the pass catchers. So now you've got the pass catchers you want. You've got the quarterback that you've chosen. There's no reason to say anything that undermines the faith that you put in them, right? Regardless of how they're doing in camp. Just, I think that's one of those. Go political on this one, Hugh. Keep it to yourself.
Yeah, I'm going to be super interested to hear how that the first one is going to be before anything
Right.
starts, and a lot of the questions he's going to punt to, yeah, I don't know yet, I don't know, we'll see, because a lot of the questions will be about stuff that he couldn't have a bunch of ideas about at this point in time, or not going to be drastically different than what he just said at media days. But that second presser of fall camp, when he's had an opportunity and they've gone through a viewing window and there's probably been a scrimmage,
Hmm.
that one's going to be
Yeah.
interesting for me.
Yeah. Any other thoughts, gentlemen, on this team going into fall camp? Anything
Uh,
good?
Cam Coleman is the man. Keandre Lambert Smith, I think, should be overly solid, right? Robert Lewis in the slot should be a pleasant surprise from everybody. And I don't want to hear about Sam Jackson. Jarquez Hunter is going to be the best running back in the SEC next year, as
Pow,
voted
pow.
by us, the media, right? Did anybody see that Jarquez? He donated $8,000 to his high school, elementary school, and a youth football program. I know this is kind of off topic, but like I thought, what a great use of NIL money to do that. It was, you hear a lot about players and the things that we talk about NIL, but we don't talk about the positive things. I think I have the picture here, right? Like this is Jarquez, and so like that's his football team there on the left, the elementary school program in the middle, and they have a program called uh, Closet and Clothes, and it's like a food pantry where they actually provide lunches for kids in need. So he's from a little town. We drove by it on our way out to media days. He ended up telling me we were about
Yeah.
15 minutes from him uh, in Philadelphia, Mississippi. But just, I thought, and in off season going into camp, I'm happy to see that that's where guys' minds are at, and those are the types of things they are doing. I think he's going to be an absolute star this year. Came up 1,000 yards, like just short of 1,000 yards last season, and missed a whole game.
Right.
And I was happy to see that there were enough media that recognized, that even though the numbers weren't eye popping, that he is still an extreme talent. I think he's earned his preseason honors. And for a coach who says that he hopes the running game is the strength of his offense, that means you hope Jarquez is having a really, really good season. And Cobb and Alston are a part of that as well, too. But
Agreed.
being able to play from game one, I think is and not starting that hole that he did, and then have to come in against Cal on the road and on Pacific Coast time is going to be awesome for him. So I'm expecting, and in 5 straight home games, he should be all gangbusters numbers to start. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see him rush for 400 or 500 yards in the first 4 or 5 games. I think he's gonna have a great season.
He needs it. I believe he'll have one. It'll be a great way to end his career at Auburn for sure, man.
Mhm.
So excited to see what him, Austin, and Cobb, those guys do in the running back room this year.
I want to thank show sponsor Manscaped, guys. It's a sizzle alert. This summer, let the only thing smoking at your barbecue be the grill and not your grooming game. Get ready for the ultimate cookout season with Manscaped. Whether you're flipping burgers or cannonballing into the pool, make sure your meat looks neat with the Performance Package 5.0 Ultra. Fire up your grooming routine and keep it cool with Manscaped. Head to manscaped.com and use code RAPPORT for 20% off plus free shipping. Let's make this summer sizzle for all the right reasons.
For full episodes, check out the Midweek Report, going live on the War Report's YouTube channel at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time Wednesday nights. Until the next time, War Eagle.